parents emptied the college fund my grandfather left me to bail my sister out again, then laughed, "You'll survive. She actually has a future worth saving." Years later, when I made my first million, I gave $500,000 to my mom's estranged sister, the aunt they'd spent my entire childhood teaching me to hate. I'm going to tell you a story about how my parents stole $120,000 from me, laughed about it, and then couldn't understand why I gave $500,000 to a woman they told me my whole life was evil. If that sounds like a lot, stick with me. It gets worse before it gets better. My name's Blake. I grew up in a mid-sized town outside of Houston. My dad, Craig, worked in logistics for an oil services company. My mom, Lori, was a dental office manager. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. 3-bedroom house, 2 cars in the driveway, neighborhood with a community pool. Normal. My sister Noelle is 3 years older than me, and I want to be fair to her here because I think it's important to understand what we're dealing with. Noelle isn't some monster. She's charming, genuinely charming. The kind of person who walks into a room and people just gravitate toward her. She's funny, she's confident, she makes you feel like you're the only person that matters when she's talking to you. She's also completely incapable of consequences. I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as a clinical observation. Every time Noelle made a bad decision, and there were many, someone caught her. My parents bailed her out of credit card debt when she was 22. They co-signed a lease on a boutique clothing store that lasted 11 months. They covered her rent when she moved to Austin to find herself. They paid off a car she'd stopped making payments on. Every single time, the narrative was the same. Noelle has potential. Noelle just needs one more chance. Noelle is going to do amazing things. Me? I was the quiet one. I got decent grades. I didn't cause problems. I played baseball through junior year, worked at a boat repair shop on weekends because I liked working with my hands. I wasn't the kid they bragged about at dinner parties, but I wasn't the kid they worried about either. I was just there. The one person who saw me differently was my grandfather. Everyone called him Pop. He was my mom's dad, a retired pipe fitter who'd spent 40 years working in refineries along the Gulf Coast. Hands like leather, voice like gravel. He smelled like pipe tobacco and WD-40, and he was the best man I ever knew. Pop used to take me fishing on Saturdays. Just me, not Noelle. She wasn't interested, and he didn't push it. Those mornings on the water were the only time in my childhood I felt like someone was actually paying attention to me specifically. Not to the family, not to what I could do for someone. Just me. "You're the one who's going to be okay, Blake," he told me once. We were sitting in his boat on Galveston Bay, not catching a damn thing. I was maybe 13. "You know why? Because I'm lucky?" He laughed. "Because you don't need anyone to tell you what you're worth." Pop died when I was 15. Heart attack in his sleep. The funeral was huge. He'd known everyone. My mom cried for weeks. Noelle posted a long tribute on social media about how he was her rock, even though she'd visited him maybe 4 times in the last 2 years of his life. What Pop left me was a college fund. He'd set it up years earlier. A custodial account with roughly $120,000 in it. My parents were the custodians until I turned 18. Pop had told me about it the last Christmas before he died. Pulled me aside in the kitchen while everyone else was watching Noelle open presents. "There's money set aside for you," he said quietly. "For school. For whatever comes next. Your parents know about it. It's yours, Blake. Don't let anyone tell you different." I didn't think much about it at the time. I was 15. $120,000 might as well have been $1 million. It was abstract. But I remembered what he said. I remembered the way he looked at me when he said it. Like he was trying to burn it into my memory. Fast forward to the spring of my junior year. I was 17. I'd started looking at colleges. Nothing fancy. I was thinking marine biology or maybe ocean engineering. I'd always loved the water. Pop's fishing trips had turned into something deeper. I wanted to work on the Gulf, near it, in it. A guidance counselor had helped me put together a list of programs I could afford with the fund plus some financial aid. I came home one afternoon and found my parents sitting at the kitchen table. Not unusual by itself, but the energy was wrong. My mom had that look she gets when she's already decided how a conversation is going to go. My dad was staring at his hands. "Sit down, Blake," my mom said. I sat. "We need to talk about Noelle's situation." Noelle's situation. That was always the phrase. Never Noelle's mess or Noelle's choices. Always her situation, like it was something that had happened to her instead of something she'd created. The short version, Noelle's boutique had gone under. She'd racked up over $80,000 in personal credit card debt trying to keep it alive. Creditors were threatening legal action. She'd also fallen behind on her apartment rent and her car payment. The total damage was somewhere around $120,000. I'm sure you can see where this is going. We've had to make some difficult decisions, my mom said. She used that calm voice she always uses when she's about to say something terrible, like a doctor delivering bad news. We used the money from your grandfather's fund to help your sister get back on her feet. I just sat there. I think I asked her to repeat it. She did. All of it. Blake. She was going to be sued. She could have ended up with a judgment against her. Her credit would have been destroyed. All of it, I said again. Not a question this time. My dad finally looked up. We're going to figure something out for you. Financial aid, scholarships. There are options. That was my money. Pop left that for me. And this is the part one will never forget. My mom leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and said, "You'll survive, Blake. She actually has a future worth saving." My dad didn't say a word. He just looked back down at his hands. I got up from the table. I walked to my room. I sat on my bed for a long time, not really thinking about anything. Just sitting. After a while, I opened the filing cabinet where my dad kept copies of important documents. I don't even know why. Maybe I wanted to see the account statements. Proof that the money had existed at all. The folder for the college fund was mostly empty. A few old statements, a copy of the original paperwork Pop had signed. But at the bottom, underneath everything else, there was an envelope. Sealed. My name written on the front in Pop's handwriting. I'd never seen it before. Nobody had ever mentioned it. I held it in my hands for a long time before I opened it. It was a letter. 2 pages, written in Pop's careful block letters. And the first line read, "Blake, if you're reading this, then things went the way I was afraid they would." The second paragraph mentioned someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Someone my mother had taught me to hate since I was old enough to understand the word. My Aunt Diane. I need to tell you about Aunt Diane before I get into the letter, because the context matters. Growing up, Aunt Diane was basically a ghost story in our house. My mom's younger sister. I'd met her exactly twice that I could remember, both times at large family gatherings when I was very young. After that, she was just gone. And the version of her I got from my mother was simple. Diane was greedy. Diane was selfish. Diane tried to steal from the family after their mother died. Diane chose money over blood. That was the whole story. Anytime her name came up, which wasn't often, my mom would get this tight look on her face and say something like, "Some people show you who they really are, and you just have to believe them." My dad would nod. Noelle would nod. I'd nod. We all nodded. Diane lived in Vermont. She was a school librarian. That's literally all I knew about her. So when I opened Pop's letter and saw her name, my first reaction wasn't curiosity. It was confusion. Why would Pop be writing to me about someone the whole family had written off? Here's what the letter said, and I'm paraphrasing because it was 2 handwritten pages and some of it was personal. But the important parts went like this. Pop wrote that he'd set up the college fund for me because he was worried my parents would always prioritize Noelle. He said he loved Noelle, but he could see the pattern, and he was afraid I'd be the one who paid for it. He said the money was supposed to be untouchable, but he knew that with my parents as custodians, there was a risk. Then he wrote this. "I tried to do something similar for your Aunt Diane a long time ago. Your mother made sure it didn't work out. If you ever get the chance, find Diane. Ask her what happened with the house. She'll tell you the truth. Your mother won't." He signed it. "I'm proud of you already, Pop." I read that letter 4 times. Then I put it back in the envelope, put the envelope in my backpack, and didn't tell anyone I'd found it. Here's what was going through my head. I was 17. My college money was gone. My mom had just told me my sister's future was worth more than mine. And now my dead grandfather was telling me from beyond the grave that my mother had done something similar to her own sister. I didn't cry. I want to be honest about that. I think I was past crying. What I felt was this cold, clear feeling. Like when you step into water that's way colder than you expected, and everything just goes sharp and still. The next few months were rough. I finished junior year on autopilot. I applied for financial aid and scholarships like my dad suggested. I got some. Not enough. Not close to enough for the programs I'd been looking at. Noelle, meanwhile, was doing great. The debt was cleared. She'd moved back home temporarily, which turned into permanently. She was regrouping. She had ideas for a new business. An online thing this time. My parents listened to her pitch over dinner like she was presenting to investors instead of the same people who'd just burned my future to clean up her last disaster. Nobody asked me how I was doing. Not once. I want to give my dad a little bit of credit here because he tried. Once, he came into my room one night, sat on the edge of my bed, and said, "I know this isn't fair, Blake." "Then why'd you let it happen?" He was quiet for a while. Then he said, "Your mother felt very strongly about it." "And what did you feel?" He didn't answer. He just patted my knee and left. That was the closest my father ever came to acknowledging what they'd done. A pat on the knee and a closed door. Senior year, I made a decision. I wasn't going to the colleges I planned on. I couldn't afford them. But I'd been working at the boat repair shop since I was 16, and the owner, a guy named Dale, had connections in the commercial diving industry. He'd mentioned it a few times. Said I had the temperament for it. Comfortable in the water, good with tools, didn't panic easy. Commercial diving, underwater welding, hull inspections, pipeline maintenance, salvage work. It's one of those careers most people don't even know exists. The training program was intense, but relatively short. And the pay, once you're certified and experienced, is genuinely shocking. We're talking six figures within a few years, and well into the high sixes or low sevens if you specialize and take the right contracts. I enrolled in a dive program in Louisiana the fall after graduation. My parents didn't try to stop me, but they didn't exactly cheer either. My mom's reaction was, "Well, I suppose not everyone is meant for college." She said it at dinner, in front of Noelle. Noelle had the decency to at least look uncomfortable. The one person who supported me was my Uncle Marcus, my dad's older brother. Retired Coast Guard, lived in Galveston. When I told him what I was doing, he just nodded and said, "Good. That's honest work and they'll pay you like they mean it." Uncle Marcus was the first person I told about the letter. Not right away, but about 6 months into my training. I called him one night from my apartment in Morgan City, Louisiana. I read him the part about Aunt Diane. He was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "I always wondered when that was going to come out." "You knew?" "I knew pieces. Your mom and Diane had a falling out over your grandmother's estate. The house. Your mom got it, Diane got nothing. The story your mom tells isn't exactly how it went down. How did it go down? That's not my story to tell, Blake. But your grandfather wasn't wrong. If you want the truth, go to the source." I didn't reach out to Diane right away. I was busy. Training was brutal. 12-hour days, pressure tests, welding certifications, emergency protocols. I was exhausted in a way I'd never experienced before, and I loved it. For the first time in my life, I was building something that was entirely mine. No one was going to take it away from me because no one had given it to me in the first place. But Pop's letter sat in my nightstand drawer, and every time I opened that drawer, I saw his handwriting. "Find Diane. Ask her what happened with the house." A year and a half after I started diving, I got certified for underwater welding. My first real contract was pipeline inspection work in the Gulf of Mexico. 7 days on, 7 days off. The money was unreal. I was 20 years old and making more than both my parents combined. I didn't tell them. When they asked how work was going, I said, "Fine, it pays the bills." When my mom asked if I'd thought about going back to school for something with more of a future, I said I was happy where I was. She made that face she makes and changed the subject. Noelle's online business had already folded by then. She was working part-time at a boutique hotel and talking about getting her real estate license. My parents were paying her car insurance. One night, sitting in my bunk on a dive support vessel somewhere in the Gulf, I finally looked up Diane. Found her on social media. A quiet profile. Pictures of her garden, her library, her cat. She looked like my mom, but softer somehow. Less armored. I typed a message. Deleted it. Typed another one. Deleted that too. Then I just wrote, "Hi Aunt Diane. This is Blake, Lori's son. Pop left me a letter before he died, and he told me to find you. I think it's time I heard your side of the story." She responded within an hour. Diane's response was longer than I expected. She said she'd been waiting for this message for years. Not from me specifically, but from someone. Anyone in the family who might finally want to hear the actual story. We talked on the phone the next week. I had a day off and I sat on the dock behind Uncle Marcus's house in Galveston and called her. She sounded nervous at first, like she was afraid I was calling to yell at her. When I told her about Pop's letter and the college fund and what my parents had done, she went quiet for a long time. "He was worried about exactly this," she finally said. "He told me. The last time I talked to him, Maybe a year before he passed, he said he was afraid the money wouldn't make it to you. Tell me about the house, I said. So she did. And here's where the story about my family gets a lot uglier. When my grandmother died, her will left the family house, a 3-bedroom place in Pasadena, to be split equally between Lori and Diane. It wasn't worth a fortune, maybe $180,000 at the time, but it was their childhood home. The plan was simple: sell the house, split the proceeds. But my mom didn't want to sell. She wanted to keep it as a rental property. Diane disagreed. She needed her half of the money. She was going through a divorce, had a young daughter, and was trying to get back on her feet. Sound familiar? Here's what my mom did. Pop was already in declining health. Early stages of dementia, though the family didn't use that word yet. My mom convinced him to sign a revised arrangement that gave her full control of the property as estate manager. Diane says she was told the document was just a formality, that the split was still equal. But when the paperwork actually went through, my mom had been named sole beneficiary of the house. Diane challenged it. My mom painted her as greedy, as someone trying to exploit Pop's condition. The irony is staggering. The rest of the family took my mom's side because my mom got to them first. Diane was cut off. No house, no money, no family. She moved to Vermont, started over, became a librarian, raised her daughter alone, never badmouthed my mother to anyone, which I confirmed later through other people who knew them both. She just disappeared, and Pop, according to Diane, felt terrible about it. He realized what had happened after the fact, once his good days gave him enough clarity to understand. That's when he set up my college fund. He couldn't fix what happened with the house, but he could try to make sure at least one more person in the family wasn't left with nothing. Except my parents took that too. I sat on that dock for a long time after the call ended. The water was flat and brown, and the sky was doing that thing it does on the Texas coast where the clouds just stack up on the horizon like they're waiting for something. I thought about Pop, about how he'd tried twice to do the right thing and been undermined both times by his own daughter. I didn't make any dramatic declarations. I didn't call my parents and confront them. I just made a decision, quietly, the way I'd learned to make all my decisions since they took the fund. I was going to fix what Pop couldn't. But not yet. Not until I could do it in a way that couldn't be taken back. Over the next 3 years, I worked. That's the boring version, but it's the honest one. I took every contract I could get. Pipeline work, salvage jobs, offshore platform maintenance. I spent 7 months on a project in the North Sea. I did emergency hull repair work in the Gulf after a tropical storm. I worked with a crew that recovered equipment from a collapsed offshore structure in 70-foot visibility. Commercial diving is dangerous and exhausting and lonely. You spend weeks on vessels with the same 12 people, eating the same food, sleeping in bunks that smell like diesel. Your body takes a beating. Your relationships suffer because you're never home. But the money is real, and I was smart with it. Uncle Marcus helped. He didn't know the full scope of what I was planning, but he'd been a Coast Guard officer for 25 years, and he understood money better than anyone in my family. He connected me with a financial advisor. I invested conservatively. I lived below my means. By the time I was 25, I had serious money saved. By 27, I'd crossed a threshold I never expected to reach. During those years, I kept in touch with my parents. Birthdays, holidays, the occasional Sunday phone call. I never told them what I was making. When I visited, I drove a used truck and wore the same clothes I'd had since dive school. They had no idea. My mom would still make comments. "Are you sure you don't want to look into going back to school?" My dad would ask vaguely about my plans. Noelle would talk about her latest venture, whatever it was that quarter. The real estate license had come and gone. She'd tried event planning. She'd started a social media consulting thing that I'm pretty sure never had a single client. Through all of it, my parents kept funding her. Small amounts here and there. Rent help, car repairs, a loan for business supplies that everyone knew would never be paid back. They'd sold the Pasadena house by then, the one my mom had taken from Diane, and used some of the proceeds to help Noelle buy a condo. The rest went into their retirement. I kept talking to Diane. Our phone calls became regular. Once a month, then every other week. She told me about her daughter, my cousin Hannah, who was in nursing school. She told me about her garden and the library renovation she'd campaigned for. She asked about my work, and unlike my parents, she actually listened to the answers. She never asked me for anything. Not once. Not money. Not favors. Not even an apology on behalf of my mother. She just seemed grateful to have family again. I visited her in Vermont the fall I turned 26. Small town, white clapboard houses, leaves everywhere. Her place was modest and warm and full of books. She made pot roast. Her cat, a massive orange thing named Biscuit, sat on my lap the entire dinner. "You look like Pop," she told me. She was crying a little. "Same jaw, same eyes. He'd be so proud of you." That's when I told her my plan. Not all of it, but enough. I told her that Pop had tried to make things right and that I intended to finish what he started. She shook her head. "Blake, I don't need your money. It's not about need, Aunt Diane. It's about what's right." She didn't argue after that. She just looked at me the way Pop used to look at me, like I was going to be okay. Back at home, the family dynamics continued on their predictable track. Noelle's latest thing was a partnership with a friend to open a boutique wine bar. She'd been talking about it for months. My parents were excited. At Thanksgiving, Noelle cornered me in the kitchen while I was washing dishes. "So Blake," she said, leaning against the counter with that smile she uses when she wants something. "How's the diving business going? You must be saving up pretty well by now." "It's fine, because Kelsey and I are looking for investors for the wine bar. Small commitments, nothing crazy." I told her my brother might be interested. "I'll think about it," I said. "Really?" Her eyes lit up. "That would be amazing. I'll send you the business plan." "Sure. Send it over." I had absolutely no intention of investing, but I needed her to believe I might. Because the moment Noelle thought I had money, she'd tell my parents. And the moment my parents knew, they'd want to know exactly how much. And the moment they found out how much a commercial diver actually makes, the entire family script was going to flip. I just needed to control when that happened. Noelle sent me the business plan 2 days later. It was 11 pages long, and the financial projections were, to put it charitably, creative. I told her I was reviewing it. She thanked me with 3 exclamation points. And I started making calls to a trust attorney in Houston. The trust attorney was a woman named Patricia Caldwell. Uncle Marcus recommended her. She was in her 60s, had a practice that specialized in estate planning and charitable trusts, and had zero patience for small talk, which I appreciated. I sat in her office in downtown Houston and explained what I wanted to do. I wanted to set up a trust that would distribute $500,000 to my Aunt Diane. I wanted it structured so that it was irrevocable. I wanted it done cleanly and legally, and in a way that nobody could challenge after the fact. Patricia listened, took notes, and asked one question. "Is this punitive or restorative?" I thought about it. "Both." She nodded. "Good. I can work with honest." The process took about 3 months. Paperwork, tax implications, structuring the disbursement so Diane wouldn't get crushed by a sudden tax burden. Patricia was thorough. I liked her. She reminded me of Pop in a way, the same directness, the same refusal to waste time on things that didn't matter. During those 3 months, life at home continued its usual rhythm. Noelle texted me about the wine bar every couple of weeks. She'd send photos of potential locations, fabric swatches for the decor, menu concepts. Each message ended with some variation of "still reviewing the business plan," followed by a smiley face. I kept saying I was looking into it. I felt a little guilty about stringing her along, but not enough to stop. Noelle had spent her whole life assuming other people's resources were available to her. She'd spent my college fund without losing a single night of sleep. A few weeks of hopeful texts weren't going to break my heart. My parents, meanwhile, were in full support mode for the wine bar. My mom had already told her friends about it. Noelle is opening a wine bar with her business partner. She's always had such an eye for these things. This from the woman whose daughter's last 3 business ventures had a combined lifespan shorter than a season of television. Christmas that year was the last time we were all together before everything changed. I drove down from my apartment in Galveston. Used truck, old jacket, same routine. Nobody asked what I'd been working on. Nobody asked about my finances. At dinner, the conversation was entirely about the wine bar. Location scouting, branding, projected opening date. My dad pulled me aside after dessert. He looked uncomfortable, which was his default state when he was about to ask me something he knew he shouldn't. "Your sister mentioned you might invest in the wine bar." She mentioned it. It would mean a lot to her. "And to your mother." "I'm still looking at the numbers, Dad." He nodded, relieved to have the conversation over with. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "You know, your mom and I are proud of you, Blake. The diving, all of it. We don't say it enough." It was the most generous thing he'd said to me in years. and it still somehow felt like a prelude to asking for money. January. The trust was finalized. Patricia walked me through the documents one last time. The money would be transferred to Diane in a lump sum through the trust. Clean, legal, irrevocable. I signed everything in Patricia's office on a Tuesday morning. I called Diane that night. "It's done," I said. She was quiet. Then she said, "Blake, are you sure? Pop wanted you to have your share. This is me making sure it finally happens. It's so much more than my share. I know, but the interest on what was stolen from you has been compounding for a long time, Aunt Diane. Not just the money. Everything." She cried. I almost did too, but I was sitting in my truck in a parking lot outside of Whataburger, and something about that setting made it feel wrong to fall apart. So I ate a patty melt and drove home. The money hit Diane's account in early February. She called me when she saw it. Said she just kept refreshing her banking app because she thought it was a glitch. We laughed about that. It felt good to laugh about money for once. I told her she could do whatever she wanted with it. Pay off her mortgage, set up a college fund for Hannah, donate to the library, sit on it, whatever. It was hers. No strings. "I'm going to tell people," she said. "Not to brag, but I've been invisible for a long time, Blake. People should know that someone in this family finally did the right thing. You can tell whoever you want," I said. And she did. Diane posted on social media. Nothing flashy. A photo of her and Pop from years ago, and a short message. She wrote about how her nephew had reached out to her after years of family estrangement. How he'd learned the truth about what happened with their mother's estate. How he'd honored their father's wishes by making things right. She didn't mention the exact amount, but she said it was life-changing, and that it proved family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. She tagged me. She didn't tag my mother. It took about 48 hours. A family friend named Denise, someone who went to church with my mom, saw the post. Denise and my mom were in a book club together. I can picture exactly how it happened. Denise pulling up the post on her phone, showing it to another friend, someone texting my mom. "Did you see what your sister posted?" My phone rang on a Thursday evening. I was on my couch in Galveston watching a documentary about shipwrecks, which in retrospect is pretty fitting. It was my mom. I let it ring 3 times before I picked up. "Blake." Her voice was the temperature of liquid nitrogen. "What did you do?" "Hey Mom, how's it going?" Do not do that." "What is Diane talking about on Facebook?" "She's posting about you giving her money and honoring your grandfather." "What is she talking about?" "Exactly what she said." "How much money, Blake?" I paused. Not for dramatic effect. I just wanted to make sure I was calm enough to say it plainly. $500,000. The silence on the other end lasted exactly long enough for me to hear my dad in the background say, "What? What did he say?" Then my mother said, very quietly, "You have got to be kidding me." "I'm not." "Where did you get $500,000? "I earned it, Mom." "That's what happens when you work for a living and nobody takes it from you." Another silence. Longer this time. "You gave $500,000 to the woman who tried to tear this family apart." "No. I gave $500,000 to the woman this family threw away. Just like Pop tried to. Just like you stopped him from doing." I could hear her breathing change. That ragged, sharp inhale she does when she's about to either scream or cry. Before she could do either, I said, "I know about the house, Mom. I know what you did with Grandma's will. I know Pop set up my college fund because he felt guilty about what happened to Diane, and he was afraid you'd do the same thing to me. And you did." She hung up. My phone started ringing again almost immediately. Dad. Then Noelle. Then Mom again. I let them all go to voicemail. The first text came from Noelle at 9:47 that night. "What the hell, Blake? Mom is hysterical. You gave $500,000 to Aunt Diane? What about the wine bar? What about us?" I read it twice. What about us? After everything. After my college fund. After years of being invisible. After being told my future wasn't worth saving. What about us? I turned my phone off and went to bed. The shipwreck documentary was still playing. I left it on. The next 72 hours were a masterclass in how my family operates under pressure. Each of them responded exactly the way you'd expect if you've been paying attention. My mom went into full damage control mode. She started calling extended family members, friends, anyone who might have seen Diane's post. Her version of events, which I heard secondhand from Uncle Marcus, was that I'd been manipulated by Diane into giving away money I didn't really have. That Diane had targeted me because I was young and impressionable. That the story about the house was a lie Diane had been telling for years. Noelle went the guilt route. She sent me a long text the next morning that started with, "I'm not going to pretend I'm not hurt," and ended with, "I just don't understand how you could do this to your own family." Somewhere in the middle, she managed to mention the wine bar 3 times. My dad sent one text. "Please call your mother." That was it. Pete Craig. I gave it 2 days before I responded to anyone. I needed the space, and honestly, I wanted them to sit with it. When I finally called, I called my dad. Not because he deserved it more, but because he was the only one I thought might actually listen. "Dad, I'm not going to apologize for what I did. Blake, your mother is devastated. Mom is embarrassed. There's a difference." Silence. Then, "That's not fair." "You want to talk about fair? You emptied my college fund and told me I'd survive. You let Mom say my sister's future was worth more than mine. You sold Grandma's house that should have been split with Diane and used the money to buy Noelle a condo. And now you're upset because I used my own money I earned by myself, to do what Pop asked me to do." More silence. I could hear him swallowing. My dad does this thing when he's emotional, where he clears his throat over and over. He was doing it now. "Your grandfather," he said slowly, "was a good man." "Yeah, he was." "And the letter? He really wrote you a letter?" "He did." "What did it say?" "It said he knew you'd take the money. And he told me to find Diane." My dad didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, "I'm sorry, Blake." And I could tell he meant it. Not in a way that fixed anything, but in a way that acknowledged the weight of it. My dad's problem has never been that he doesn't feel guilt. It's that he lets guilt sit inside him instead of doing anything about it. "I appreciate that," I said. "But sorry doesn't give me back 4 years of education. And it doesn't give Diane back 20 years of family." We left it there. It wasn't a satisfying conversation. It wasn't supposed to be. The confrontation with my mom happened a week later. She drove to Galveston. I didn't invite her. She just showed up. Uncle Marcus called me to give me a heads up because she'd called him looking for my address. I told him it was fine. I'd been expecting it. She knocked on my apartment door at 10 in the morning. I opened it, and she walked in without being asked. She looked around, taking in the space. It was nice. Not extravagant, but nice. 2-bedroom, waterfront, good furniture. I could see her recalculating everything she thought she knew about my life. "This is where you live," she said. "Yeah. How long have you been able to afford something like this?" "A few years." She sat down on my couch. She looked tired, older than I remembered. For a second I felt bad for her, but then she opened her mouth. "You owe me an explanation, Blake." "No, Mom. I really don't. That money could have helped your sister. It could have helped this family. Instead, you gave it to a woman who tried to destroy us." "Diane didn't try to destroy anyone. She asked for her half of Grandma's house. You took it from her. Pop knew it. He wrote it down. And you used his fund for me to bail out Noelle the same way you used Grandma's estate to cut Diane out." Her face did something I'd never seen before. It crumpled, not into crying, but into something harder to watch. Recognition. For maybe 3 seconds, my mother's face showed that she knew exactly what I was talking about, and that she knew I was right. Then the wall went back up. "You don't know what it was like," she said. "Diane was impossible. She was always jealous of me. She always wanted what I had. She wanted half a house, Mom. That's not jealousy. That's arithmetic. And your sister. Everything I did for Noelle, I did because she needed help. Noelle always needs help. That's the point. You taught her that someone would always catch her. And the person you sacrificed to do it was me." My mom stood up. She grabbed her purse. She walked to the door. And then she turned around and said the thing that told me everything I needed to know about whether this relationship was fixable. "If you had any loyalty to this family, you would have come to us before giving a dime to that woman." "I did come to you, Mom. I was 17. You told me I'd survive." She left. She didn't slam the door, which was almost worse. She just pulled it shut with this precise little click, like she was leaving a business meeting. That was 7 months ago. Here's where everyone is now. My mom and I don't speak. She hasn't called. She hasn't texted. She's told the family her version, which is that I was conned by Diane and that I'll come around eventually. Some relatives believe her. Some don't. I don't spend a lot of energy worrying about it. My dad calls me every few weeks. Short conversations. We talk about baseball, weather, his retirement plans. He never mentions my mom or the money. I think he's trying to maintain some thread of connection without having to actually confront anything, which is the most Craig thing imaginable. I let him. The calls aren't nothing, even if they're not enough. Noelle. The wine bar didn't happen. Her business partner backed out after what Noelle described as creative differences, but which I suspect was the partner realizing that Noelle's family money wasn't coming. She's back to working part-time, living in the condo my parents bought her. She sent me a birthday card last month. It said, "Thinking of you," with no return address. I don't know what to do with that yet. Diane used some of the money to pay off her mortgage and set up a college fund for Hannah. She donated $20,000 to her library for a new children's reading room. She named it the Pop Larson Reading Room. When she sent me the photo of the dedication plaque, I sat in my truck for 10 minutes before I could drive. Uncle Marcus came up to visit me last month. We went fishing in the bay, same water Pop used to take me on. We didn't catch anything, which felt right. "You did a good thing, kid," he said. "I did what Pop asked me to do." That's the same thing. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I feel great about everything. I lost my parents, basically. My sister is a stranger. Half my extended family thinks I'm the villain. That's not nothing. But I think about Pop. I think about him sitting in his kitchen, writing that letter in his careful block handwriting, hoping that someday I'd be in a position to finish what he started. I think about Diane, sitting in her little house in Vermont, finally having a piece of what was taken from her. And I think about that morning on the boat when I was 13. Pop telling me I was going to be okay because I didn't need anyone to tell me what I was worth. He was right. I am okay. And for the first time in my life, the people who tried to convince me otherwise are the ones who have to figure out how to survive without me.